Hey guys, this is Robo Rick. Just here to begin my new code series, Angular to React. Basically, what this is designed to do is help those who are in the Angular world make a smoother transition into React because there are some subtle differences, but there are a lot of ways we can relate the material. Since Angular 2 is shit, you might want to stay tuned. All right, guys, so let's just jump right into it. So in Angular, when I want to utilize an AngularJS controller, basically the idea is taking this space within this element, and the controller wraps that element, and basically any functionality within the controller that binds it to the DOM through scope is going to be available to me. So for example, if I want to print out this test code here from our controller, I would have to go in and I would just write test, and then once we run our code, then we get that little the two squiggly lines of doom before our code loads, and then we get this as a test. With React, we're going to start from scratch here. Basically, I need to think in terms of components. So, for instance, I am going to create a component that I'm going to bind or that I'm going to render within the div that has the ID of app. So basically, I'm writing this all in ECMAScript 6, guys, so don't be alarmed. So if I want to create a test element, I'm going to start by stating class, the name of the class, so I'll just call this one test, and then it's going to extend an Angular component. Basically, all we're doing is saying this is a component, and that's it, right? And then from there, in order to get this to work, I'm going to need to do two things. First, I'm going to need to create a constructor function, and within that constructor function, I'm going to need to take in the props as a parameter. And we'll get into that in a second. And then you need to do a super with props. You need to call super with props called. And then that is what's going to allow various variables, us to set variables and whatnot. You guys will see in a second. Then it has to have a render function. And what the render function must do is it has to return a div or some kind of element. So basically, we're just going to have it say test. Now, what we're going to need to do is render this into our app ID. And to do that is extremely simple. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to do render. I'm going to put in the new test element that we just built, and it's a must that you do the / if you call it for your element. And then what you're going to need to do is document.getElement by ID, and we're just basically telling React to send test to whatever ID element that we have right now. And I'm going to send it to app. Now, from this, I'm going to go to localhost 8080. And already, we don't get squiggly lines of doom. And I think this is a better user experience because what's happening is the JavaScript is loading and then it's rendering the DOM. Whereas with Angular, the DOM is already rendered, but then you have to re-render it. So I think this way is better right off the gate, and it just provides a better user experience. So now let's go into simple functionality. So in Angular, if you want to have a user click an element and then have that element fire a function, what you would need to do is do div test, and then what you'd have to do is do ng-click, and then from there, we'll just do test click, opening, closing parentheses, and then when we go to app.js, we can do test click, and then you set that equal to a function which what we're going to have it do is just console.log. This is how you do it in Angular. And then in our React side of our code, how we would do this is simply, if we want to make a test click function, all we're going to do is create test click right here. It doesn't take any arguments. And then I would just do console.log. And I'm going to put this is React. And then what I'm going to do here is, instead of ng-click, we're going to do on-click in camel case equal. And then I'm going to do single bangers, opening and closing parentheses. And then I'm going to make that equal to this dot test click. Now, the reason why I have to use this here is because I'm referring to this object itself. So right now, what I'm basically doing is I'm clicking this, and then it should give us this is React. So let's compare both of them again. So with Angular, when I click this guy, I'm going to click it a few times. I'll open up our console, and this is how you do it in Angular. So that's how you click on an object and fire a function in Angular. But in React, we'll show it how we did it that way. So when I click a few times, and I go here, developer tools, as you can see, this is React. So both ways are valid, but this would be how you do get the ng-click functionality into React. Now, let's say that I want to click this function, but I actually want it to do something. Like, I want it to change the state of the application. So the first thing I need to do is I need to create a state. So I'm going to do this dot state equals opening, closing parentheses, and then what I'm just going to do is do test string as my key, and my value is going to be this hasn't been changed yet. So essentially here, and then if I want to put that string into my DOM, what I'm going to have to do is use a single banger, and then I'll do this dot state dot test string. So basically this hasn't been changed yet. So let's build a simple function that will change it. So basically when the user clicks this, what I want it to do is I want it to change the state of this this test string. So it's quite simple. What I'm just going to do is go this dot test string. All right, this dot state. Oh, actually, no. What it needs to do is it needs to do this dot set state, which is React's cool way of saying, like, yo, change this state, change properties within the state. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set test string equal to I have been clicked, and I'll spell it with a K so we can be silly. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm saying, yo, set the state of test string equal to this variable upon clicking. So, and then, you know, let's refresh. I'll show you guys what else. Oh, I have been clicked. Cool. So if we refresh, I have been clicked, and then it changes it. With Angular, as most of you know, what you would have to do in this situation, it may seem simpler, but then yet you're using two-way data binding, which is eating up your memory allocation, but let's just do it anyway. So if we do scope.test string, I'm going to set that equal to I'm a dinosaur. And then when the user clicks it, I'm just going to do scope.test string equals I should watch more Techwarriorz videos. Okay, cool. And then what you'd have to do is you'd have to go in here within your DOM, and then you would have to give double bangers test string. But with two-way data binding, what's happening is Angular is constantly watching this application. So it's basically setting up a listener, waiting for that variable to change, whereas in React, it just renders when you tell it to render. So therefore, it's just ultimately a better user experience. And it's better for applications that have to render a lot of information. That's why Instagram is using it, and Facebook's using it, Red Bull TV, tons of people. So let's just hit play. I'm a dinosaur. I should watch more videos. But it still works. It works faster in React, even though it's just a simple test. Okay. So another thing, and this is like the very first thing you do out of the box with Angular is we've all done it. It's that input ng model equals test bar. So that's a test variable, and then you would just basically do test bar, refresh, play, and then as you type, you get that kind of situation. It's still quite simple to do in React, but there are some steps that might seem a little cumbersome at first, but you will get used to it, kind of like how I did. Okay, so let's do this. What I'm going to do is I want to wrap this in another div. And then I'm going to build another div. This is going to be for our onChange methodology. So essentially what I want to do is I want to have an input type equals text, and then what I'm gonna need to do is do an onChange method equals blah blah blah, this dot change value. And then we still have to build that function, so don't worry, people. And then right after that, I am going to want to do a function that is this dot state dot test change, right? So basically, what I need to do now is I just need to add that test change variable to our state in our constructor. And I'm just going to put, actually nothing yet. And then our value is going to be equal to this dot state dot So there's nothing there yet, but there will be. So then what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to create this test change function, and it's going to pass in an event naturally by React. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to set the state of this variable test change equal to event dot target dot value, and from there what we're going to need to do is we're just going to need to go to outside of our state variable. We're just going to do this dot test. Oh wait, no. Change value is what we call that variable. See right there. So now we'll see if this works. Aha, so this dot set state is undefined. Why? It's because we haven't binded the change value to the constructor yet. So all you have to do is you just have to go this dot change value equal to this dot change value dot bind, and you're just going to bind this. And then from there, as you can see, we get the same feel as Angular. So it's not that much work. I know it can feel a little cumbersome, but it's really just one function, and you bind the value to your state variable. You guys will get the hang of it over time. So another thing that's really easy in Angular is that I could create a factory, and I'll stop going back and forth, guys. If you know this, you already know Angular, but there's this concept of a factory, in which case I could reuse functions. I can reuse code and reuse functions, and it's a great way to pass things off. We can do that quite simply in Angular. So what I'm gonna do is in our file manager is I am going to create a directory, and in that directory I'm just gonna call this one we'll just call it factories. Fuck it, why not? And in this factory I'm gonna create a new file, and I'm gonna call this common functions.js. Now in here, I actually, since we're not going to render anything, I don't need to import, I just need to export. So I'm going to export const. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Yeah, because I'm exporting a constant value, function called return name. So basically what I'm going to do here now is I'll go to index, and what I want to do is I want to import, and I believe we call this return name from, and then I just need to go through the files path. So I'm going to do /factories /common functions.js. Now what I want to do is instead of test change equals to nothing yet, I'm just going to set that to return name. Then when I do that, notice how it goes robo-rick. So essentially, that's how you would do a factory in React. All you have to do is create a file, export it as a constant value with whatever your function needs to be. Then you use opening and closing curly braces here, put in the names of whatever functions you need separated by commas. So let me show you what I mean by that. So this one could be return name. Let's export one constant value called return age, and I'm going to set that equal to a function that takes no parameters. And this was just going to return 27, even though I turned 28 later this month. I'm clinging on to the last remnants of my youth. So I'm going to do return age. Now let's say that, you know what, just to show you guys how this works, we can do test change, and then I can do opening, closing curly braces, and I can do return age within this guy. And then, as you can see, RoboRick27 appears to be next to it. So we can do a lot of things with these functions, guys, but I'm really just blazing along here just to give you guys the basic overview. Now, one of the powerful things about Angular, the part that I liked the most, was directives. What directives allowed you to do was actually have reusable pieces of code within the DOM. You could pass in variables, callback functions, whatever you need to do. But I can still do that within the confines of React, and I can actually do it quite simply too. So what I want to do is I'm going to create a new folder, a new file. Let's call it directory. What I'm going to call this directory is I'm going to call it components. And in this component, I'm just going to create file, and I'm just going to do, I'm going to call this one directive alternative, because that's what we're doing. We're just basically creating an alternative to Angular directives. So I'm going to import React, and then I'm also going to import component but this time putting it in between these curly braces. Then I'm going to say from React, and this time I'm going to do things a little bit different. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to say export default, meaning that this is what I'm exporting if nothing else is called. I'm going to export default class. Let's call this one directive. Let's call it directive. It's going to extend component like we did before. And this one, we need the same dog and pony show. I need to put in a constructor function that takes in the props. And this is the part where we get into what props actually are. And I'm going to have super say props. And this one, we're not going to deal with state, so don't worry about that for right now. And let's just have this thing for the time being return, or actually render. It's got to be a function, and I'm going to return just a div that says, hi, my name is, and let's have some fun here. So I'm just going to toss in this.props.first name, and then I'm going to say, and I like this.props.food. Okay? So now that this data is available, what we need to do now is go back to our index.js file, and I'm going to import directive from, and then I'm going to do /components / directive alternatives.js. Now, as we can see here, I need to supply a first name and a food. So let's go here. Let's create a new div. And within that div, I'm going to create just two so you guys get the point. Directive. And then each directive is going to have a first name equal to, first one is going to be Bobby. And food is going to equal pizza. So if I do that, hi, my name is Bobby and I like pizza. I like pizza. Then if we do another directive, we're going to say my name is Scott and his favorite food is beer. So we got those two guys. Awesome. But now it's a great way to pass in strings and other variables, but I promised you guys a callback method, and we can do that as well. So what I'm going to want to do is I will, if I need to do a callback function, first thing I need to do is create the callback function that I need to do. So we'll call this one test callback. So test callback. And what test callback is going to do is just console.log. I am firing from the directive. I'm firing from the directive. And then let's make it fun, because one of the things you can do with Angular is you could pass in a function into a directive that would affect the controller itself and not the function. So what we'll do is we'll just do this.setState, and we will set that, we're going to set test string equal to, wait, I wasn't called from the main component, smiley face. And what I'll do here is we're going to fire it just off of 1. So we'll just pass in a CB function, and I'm going to set that equal to this dot test callback. And for the sake of argument, let's do this. Let's actually bind it to the constructor just to be safe. Test callback equal to this dot test callback dot bind this. Okay, cool. So now that I have that, we need to go back to our directive, and we just need to create a button. That when clicked, so we're just going to do on click. We're just going to set that equal to this dot props. Actually, I'll do this. And let's clean this up so you guys can see. I'm just going to set that equal to this dot props dot CB, which is our callback that we passed in. So now let's and then we need to put something inside the button. Test callback. So now when I hit test callback, boom, I am firing from the directive. Wait, I wasn't fired from the main component. So now we have that. Boom, boom, it's there. This one, nothing, because we did not pass a callback into it. So in this video, let's go over what we covered. We covered how you would do the equivalent of ng-click with React. We also went ahead and dealt with how you would mimic Angular's two-way data binding, and we also mimicked how you would do a factory in React, and then we also did how you would mimic a directive within the confines of React, and I I think this way is much, much simpler than what we were doing for Angular for those God knows how many years. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your support. I saw that the mean stack tutorials are hitting 30, 40,000 views, so thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. I do all this for you guys and to continue to spread my love for coding and help us all expand and get better together. All I ask is that you guys do 3 things for me. Keep in mind it's 3:30 in the morning and I did this for you guys. Could you please subscribe to the channel if you're not doing so already, share this, comment, and then also I've developed a decent following on Facebook for my personal self, which is facebook.com/TheRoboRick. Please toss me a follow on Facebook, and until next time, you guys keep on keeping on. I'll talk to you soon.